All right, pal. I'm ready to go.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Episode 10. Can you believe it? We've reached 10. Oh my
That's
goodness.
not getting that's not getting edited out, by the way. There, googly eye.
That's okay. Episode 10. Ticket to Gamehenge, the podcast where we talk about all the great ways, scientifically, anecdotally, whatever we come up with to get your friends and family to love our favorite band,
The
Phish.
best band
Before we
ever.
jump into our menu, which today consists of some side projects, a little bit of science around does absence make the heart grow fonder? And we'll even talk a little bit about maybe hype up tonight's return, the triumphant return of dinner and a movie,
So
which I
awesome.
think will all tie in together. But before that, I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things from last week. First and foremost, just real quick, I referenced a quote about critics. We were talking about critics, and I forget why. We were reviewing Burn It Down, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and then I think, from there we kind of talked about Bittersweet Motel and the whole critic question coming up, right? So anyway, the quote that I found is actually an Ernest Hemingway quote,
Oh, nice.
and it reads, "Critics are men who watch a battle from a high place, then come down and shoot the survivors."
Clearly, Hemingway's been stung once or twice by a critic.
Yeah, it's quite cerebral. And then the other piece of follow up is I got around to watching Joker, with a little, based on what we were talking about last week. We took a couple of nights to watch it. And Megan watched it with me. Not the typical movie for her. She likes comedies. She doesn't like
Oh boy.
a lot of what she saw.
She's scarred for life now, or what?
I don't know. She hasn't really talked about it since, but she wanted to go back to it on night 2. She's the one who brought it up. I wasn't sure if she was going to want to finish it or just let me finish it and kind of tell her what happened, which she's done in the past on movies like that. But yeah, I think great performance, obviously. The violence, it's almost funny that the lack of it in times made when it did happen so much more impactful, and it escalated very quickly in the moment. You could feel it coming, you could see it coming, but it was very visceral when it happened. The impact of it kind of reminded me of a movie called Drive with Ryan Gosling from 2011.
Yep.
Right, when the violence hits in that movie, it's very visceral. So, really, really good movie in a lot of ways, but very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. And I think the older I get, the more I find those types of things uncomfortable. The situations seem more real, and they seem more fantasy-like in my 20s.
Would you agree with my horribly well done? Can you see where at least that came from?
Yeah, totally.
Like it's
almost
outstanding, like you feel bad for him, and yet at the same time you're like, you're a monster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. And that's been a recent movement, starting with TV, really with Tony Soprano, like from The Sopranos, back from like the late '90s. That's been a very, very big trend in male characters, troubled, dark, yet we root for them anyway. If you think about Walter White, right, in
that's probably why I don't
Breaking Bad.
That's probably why I don't love Breaking Bad either. I'm like, I didn't love it.
Yeah, Don Draper in Mad Men, similar. The guy in Boardwalk Empire. There's a ton of characters. Dexter. There's all these characters that are really, really bad, yet we somehow root for. It's a strange condition we have. But good movie. I'd recommend it to anyone who can withstand it. I don't think it's the most uncomfortable movie.
There's way more uncomfortable movie. What's the most uncomfortable movie?
So the one I immediately think of, and it's one that like really shocked me, that I still remember and I just won't watch again, is Requiem for a Dream with Jared Leto.
Oh, Jesus, yes.
Right?
Awful. Oh.
Right? Yeah. Oh. It's almost a movie that any young adult needs to see but shouldn't have to see again.
No, nobody should see that. That should be buried and forgotten.
Really?
There's nothing.
Wow.
You learn. Here's the thing. You learn something from watching the Joker. There's a benefit that you get. There's an understanding, that you can get from Requiem from a Dream or whatever, you don't get anything, man. Nothing.
Really?
Yep.
I got how slippery that slope is when people get onto that drug and doing what I do. I've worked with people that have seen that slope from, people in the neighborhood, if you will, going from healthy and normal, and then within a year, just awful.
Dude, all you have to do is look back in the people that we went to high school with to learn that lesson. You don't have to watch that piece of trash movie.
Yeah.
The other
sad,
movie
man.
I will add, have you ever seen a movie named, and again, my top uncomfortable movie, that one's number one. I fully agree with you. Number two is a movie called Bully. It was, do you remember that movie Kids?
I was just going to say,
do you remember that movie?
Kids.
Yeah, so
Hunt with Stuckey. Oh my God, that movie.
It's the same.
Oh, I hated that movie. That might take out Requiem for a Dream.
No, Requiem.
I hated that movie, but that stuck with me.
So he did another one called Bully.
Oh, okay.
Do not watch it. Terrible.
Okay.
Terrible, uncomfortable. You feel awful. You just feel awful after.
Okay. I'm tired of feeling like this.
Yeah,
I want to talk about Phish. Holy shit. Like, what are we doing? Okay, let's talk about Phish. Side projects. So we talked about it last week. I asked the community if they would give me a top 3 on Reddit. I got a few answers. Not a lot of variation. Oysterhead I wanted to talk about a little bit. Some of the most recent live shows that we've seen from Trey have been Oysterhead shows, and those were, what are we talking now, 8 months ago. And we were lucky enough to see them in 2001, which still to this day is I remember that experience. I remember driving down with you and your wife, then girlfriend.
Yeah.
Right? You guys hadn't been together very, very long. I insisted that we listen to Dave's new Live in Chicago on the way down. And I remember we were listening to a song called The Last Stop, which I kind of referenced on an earlier episode of our podcast here, in that it was a song that on the album I didn't really like, and then finally a live version came out and I really, really liked it, and it was that version that I played for you guys. And it was the particular part at the end where they do a change that isn't on the album but all of a sudden is live, and then the crowd, and I had to make a point of pointing that part out to you guys, right? Like it was one of those, okay, everybody shut up, here it comes.
Stop talking.
It was one of, but then, I remember hanging outside of Massey Hall and seeing all the characters hanging around and talking with people, and then small venue, and just when they came out, it was awesome. Pseudo Suicide, remember that? Shit.
Trey ripped that
so
one,
good.
Man. He ripped that one. Is it funny that yesterday was Les Claypool's birthday and today is Trey Anastasia's birthday?
I was going to bring that up.
Oysterhead? So meta, man.
When's Stewart Copeland's birthday?
I don't know. I got my phone here. I can look it up.
I gotcha. I'm on it. Here we go. Stewart Copeland. He is, let's see here, July 16th, 1952, 68. Looking good. Good for him. So Oysterhead was a very, very popular one. Great band, and the fact that they're still kind of going. No new material, really, but they're still kind of going, which is awesome. We talked about Ghosts of the Forest last week. Vita Blue was brought up. There was one Mike Gordon band. How do you say it? Ogo? I
have no idea.
Yeah, that was brought up a few times, but I didn't know what it was. Pork Tornado was referenced as being the only thing.
Both crappy and good.
But one when I was listing it off last week, I had gone to the Live Phish app and I was listing off all of the potential side projects, and I was sort of paused at Trey Anastasio and Don Hart, and I didn't really know what that was. But I kind of made a commitment coming out of our conversation last week to listen to a few more of the side project albums.
Yep.
In the background, as I mentioned before, I'm going back to 2009, and I'm up to early August when they're running through the gorge right now. And at that time, Time Turns Elastic was getting played a lot. It was the single coming off of Joy. So I was just curious about the song, and I just kind of looked it up, and then I saw that the last time it's been played was October of 2010. Like it's been 10 years nearly since they played that song, and they just played it for a very short period of time. And I was hearing it a lot and starting to like it, but then starting to not, and just it was just a song that was sticking with me. So I started to do some searching on the song. And I guess before I really get into it, because I have some notes and I have some thoughts, what's your take on Time Turns Elastic? It's a song that we've never brought up. It's a song that is very polarizing from what I've gathered, but mostly people don't like it.
I think it's great. I like it. I think it's great. To be honest, I haven't given it much thought till you brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah.
Right, because it just sort of fades into
well, you never listen to the albums, right? You listen to them play live.
Yeah, and when I started to get back on the train, I think one of the first things that I did was I went back and I listened to the Baker's Dozen, because I figured that's going to essentially give me the catalog and kind of bring me up to speed. And that song didn't even make the cut for Baker's Dozen, where they really went deep, And so yeah, digging into it, I learned a few things. It was a song that he essentially crafted while he was in his drug court rehab. Really? He was putting, So Trey really got into The Power of Now, a really, really popular book.
Yeah.
Right? You're probably well aware of it. But for those that aren't aware of it, in a nutshell, The Power of Now is all about you don't know anything about the future. The past is gone. All you really know is right now and living in this moment. And Trey's really, I don't think it's a secret if you've heard an interview about Trey. He's referenced it and talked about that concept many times and brings it into the music. It's all about being in the moment and where you are. So I think he was really getting into that at the time of writing this. And Time Turns Elastic is about the concept of time and how it can bend and your perceptions of it change. I talk about it a lot with people, that the more you experience something, the shorter that thing seems to be. And the years of your life are a really good example of that, right? Each passing year of your life seems faster than the prior year, does it not? Right? Each passing year in your business is much faster. If you think back to the first year that you guys were operating, it's probably very in focus, because you're experiencing a lot of those things for the first time, right?
Yeah.
You can probably remember your first 10 clients, right?
Nope.
No? Okay. Bad example.
No.
Or if you think about...
But you're right. Like what you're saying is right. Like you look at like life with like kind of like AD and BC is like pre-kids, post-kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like how much faster time moves with kids. Is there a siren every single week at this time?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and the way I often explain it to people with your life is that, and I'm getting a bit sidetracked, but I think it's interesting, is that if you view your life in the form of a pie chart, where each slice of the pie is a year, right?
Yep.
When you're 4 years old, the slice of your pie is 25% of your life. So 1 year to you and your 4 is a ton of time, because you haven't experienced many years yet. And then obviously as you go to 10 years, your pie gets smaller, or your slices get smaller and smaller. A year is still a year, a minute is still a minute, but your perception of it changes based on your experiences of it. And I'll bet it's true of Phish fans that have been to, say, 300 shows. They can probably tell you a lot of detail about shows 1 through, say, 10. But show 246 versus show, 187, I wonder. Do you know what I mean? Would they all blend together a little bit more? What do you think? No? Anyway, but those are the things I think about, and that I was sort of reading about when I was reading about Time Turns Elastic and the concept of time and how it can shift. And then evidently, like, a ton of energy was put into this song, really went back to, really has like 5, 6 like different sections. It kind of jumps. It's got a ton of lyrics. There's a lot going on in this song, and you can tell it's something that was labored over and obsessed over for a long period of time. He partners with Don Hart, who's an arranger and composer, and they bring in a symphony and they record it and they perform it live in a few ways. But he was really doing it with the Phish reunion in mind. Right, so brings it to the band. The band starts playing it. They record it. They play it for the first time May 31st, 2009 at Fenway Park, of all places, right? And then they say at the end of it, yeah, that's our single. And when I heard that show earlier this year for the first time, I thought it was a joke. Yeah, that was their single, their first single off of Joy, which is great. And it's like the band tried and tried and tried, and it just seems that the fans just didn't take it. right? It just seemed to be there was some terminology that went on at the time that people got TTE'd. Oh, I was at a show and I got TTE'd. Yet there are parts of that song that I think are great. It's just I just don't think it could really find its place. And I just wonder, I'll kind of wrap it up and I'll ask this question. I just wonder if I think it would be a very personal song to Trey, because when he wrote it, going through what he was going through, and then I would imagine he really wanted it to become a great Phish song because they were playing it a lot, right? And it was sort of in 2.0, you didn't really get those types of songs, these compositions that, spread 15, 17 minutes, whatever it is.
Yep.
And for it to be sort of put down and have to be shelved, I just wonder how defeating or how upsetting that might be. Or if the reason it's been put down is because it is incredibly personal, and then there was some other reason why they got rid of it. I don't know. But when I hear it, I like it. I like it. It's just I just wonder if it could have a new life, if there's a possibility for that.
So I don't think, just based on what I know and how they've handled other songs, I think he has zero weight into what we think about the music.
I think so too, but the general feeling is that
I think the reason that it got shelved, or that it's been 10 years, is there's probably sections of it that he personally did not like the way that they were coming across live. Like the horns, like those really composed sections where there's a lot of other musicians and a lot of things happening. If I think the only reason this band would ever shelf a song is because one of them isn't happy with the way that it sounds. Thankfully we wouldn't get, like the amount of criticism that always accompanies Phish with anything that they do. Like at this point, you can't possibly care.
Right. So it's funny, like what you just said is completely logical, totally logical. And I think anybody in the band would basically say, yeah, we just decided not to play it. And it's that simple. Occam's razor, right? The simplest solution is the most likely. Yeah. And, but maybe I just bought into what I think a lot of Phish fans do. They theorize, they not necessarily spread a conspiracy, but add fuel to a fire that doesn't necessarily need it. But that's part of what kind of makes being a Phish fan all about is we don't know. So that's
true.
And that can be better in your own mind than the reality, like the ending of Lost, right? That show cannot live up to the ending that people wanted it to be in their own mind. Therefore, it failed, right? So I don't know. Maybe maybe some of that.
And the Smoke Monster had no point, one or the other.
Yeah.
But anyways, listen, man. I think that's why the reason that there's so much one of the reasons that there's so much respect and admiration for this band is because they don't give two shits what we think. That is a commendable position. For anything in life, especially in 2020, when we are enamored, obsessed with what other people think, right? The fact that there's 4 dudes showing up being like, I don't care if there's one person here or 10,000 people here, we're going to play because we want to hear this music played live. You've won. You are the winners.
That's true. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about something. You put a poll on Reddit about. I basically summed it up into, and maybe incorrectly, but I've summed it down to: does absence make the heart grow fonder?
Yep.
And the topic of that, and the actual poll that you put out, unless you remember the wording of it, I can bring it up in a second.
The wording is the people who are like the neutrals. Right? Or like, I like this band, but I don't love them like us. Not everyone has a podcast about a band. Is this absence making them miss the band more, or are they going to forget about the band?
Right. And pretty overwhelming response of your 56 votes. 48 people voted that they will care more for Phish when this is over.
And I disagree.
You don't think that's the reality? Like, you think that's sort of a BS answer?
I think they're viewing it through their lens. I think the fact that that they miss Phish so much, because I miss Phish so much, right? Like, and you read these crazy articles that life's never going to get back to the way it was, and you're just like, are you kidding me, man? that to me is hard to hear, and that's depressing. And the longer that it goes, and the longer now they're spreading out dinner and a movie, which I'm super thankful for, by the way, regardless. But like, like somebody posted like this thing when Chris Farley did, I think, like Letterman, like him like going down the aisles and like going all crazy, and the tag was like, when I get into my first venue, right? And I'm like, that's exactly right. That's exactly what we're gonna be like. But for people who are like moving on, I don't know, man. There's other bands to listen to. There's other things to get into. If you're not a fanatic, and the further you spend apart, the tougher that it gets.
Yeah, I agree with you in a sense. I wonder if the demographic or the audience will shift a bit.
It was going to shift regardless. It could never stay the same, right? So a shift was
happening. obviously. But yeah, I was reading a thread the other day about someone who essentially said that they've discovered that they can do some other things with their vacation time, that they in the past would take all of their vacation time and do nothing but see Phish.
Right. I read that too.
Right. And I kind of get that, right? We all kind of take on like different hobbies. I get into different things, and that's, I can appreciate that. Yeah. I wish we had an answer to when it was going to be, but the only thing we know now is that it's going to be longer than we had originally thought. Now, even next year, I think comes into question with the way things are going.
I think it's already done, to be honest. I don't expect anything for next year.
Yeah. So, it's too bad. It's interesting when you Google, does absence make the heart grow fonder? Yeah. There's a few articles in there, and they really only tie it to people like your stereotypical type of a relationship, long distance relationships, and that sort of thing. And the science there shows that absence does make the heart grow fonder.
Yep.
That as long as the people are willing to put in some effort, that the type of relationship that's built through distance is very, very different than the type of relationship that's built from people that live in the same proximity, because they have less face time. The quality of the time that they have is much, much better because they don't have the quantity. It's not as watered down, right? So they tend to get into more deeper conversations about the relationship and talk about more serious things than if you just happen to be in the same space as somebody all the time. That was the only thing that I could really find, but I started to compare that to the relationship between the band and the fans. And over time, when you look at the types of things that Trey has put on like social media and the types of material that's come out, it's gotten more personal. Right.
Well, listen, so if you were to say, what band is doing the best to interact and with their fans, Phish is doing the best. Right. So like you mentioned, you read that article and it's about, like the two parties and they're doing things to actively create a relationship. The stuff that Phish is doing compared to other bands is absolutely, they're doing everything that they can to keep the fans engaged and to keep them caring. And, so, I mean, I think if I were to compare, if there was a control group, right, if we were to look at the average band, whatever that is, and what their neutrals are going to do, the people who care about Phish are going to stay caring about Phish for a longer period of time compared to the average band.
Yeah.
But I think over time, life goes on, man.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because in terms of the types of engagement, I would say, and this probably has something to do with the fact that they're managed by the same company. Dave Matthews is what they're doing. They're calling it drive-in or something like that. But they were doing it every Wednesday night when Phish had dinner and a movie on Tuesday nights. They're down to about a once a month plan. So they're doing that. Dave is popping up on social media, doing his own things, doing live. He's playing all the time. So there is that level, but there's not many that are doing that. They're dropping new music maybe, but they're not staying engaged. You're right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. Very good point. About just post-COVID-19. I mean, I had that note down, but really we don't know when post-COVID-19 is, right? There's a lot of things that are up in the air in terms of vaccines and if that stuff is coming. So we'll have to wait and see. But I wonder, though, it'd be interesting to see the size of tonight's dinner and a movie compared to the last few, because it's been gone for a little bit. And to answer the question, does absence make the heart grow fonder? Will more people tune in tonight than they did, say, a month ago or a month and a half ago? I wonder. I think there's a lot to tune in for for tonight.
P.S. I'm super pissed. This is literally 3 days after the first show that I ever went to.
Is it really? Yeah, that's right.
July 2099.
Yeah.
They played Toronto. And that was my first show. And I'm like, you sons of bitch. And I know it's going to be an awesome show. I know it's awesome. So I'm grateful.
Yeah.
But part of me is just like, you son of a gun.
Yeah, it's one of the few 1.0 dinner to movies that's been put out where the show is actually available already. For the most part, the 1.0 shows that have been put on dinner to movie came out on Live Phish later on. So this is one that more people will be familiar with. And I don't want to necessarily spoil it for anybody who's going in blind, but I will say the second set is a 5-song set. And when there's a 5-song set, you know it's on.
I am curious, maybe this is a question to pose, but I wonder how many people listen to the sets the same way that we do.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
So how do we listen to a set? It's really easy. You pick a date and then you hit play, and you don't know, like, unless you really know the show, right? And you know, like, you just kind of, you pretend like you're there and you're you know, partaking in the storytelling.
Yeah, I do this thing, and my wife laughs at me because what I do is I download the shows offline so that I can play them in my car because I drive in the countryside and it drops in and out. I don't want to pay for the data, but I also don't want to know what's coming next. So what I do, I have to go into the show and I cover up half of the screen with my hand so I can't see the names of the songs, and then I download it and back out. And then when I hit play, I literally hit play and look away and close my phone so I don't know.
I have a mantra. Like, I don't, because I can't tell myself not to look at it. Because if you tell yourself not to look at it, you're going to look at it. That's the way that it goes. Right? So my mantra is like, I pick an object and I'm like, look at this object. Look at, you know, the green army guy. Look at the green army guy. Look at the green army guy.
That's funny. Yeah. So are you going to watch tonight, or are you holding off to wait for the weekend?
I am going to watch. So this is what I'm hoping for. This would be a perfect for me. I'm not going to watch tonight because myself and Rochelle watch tomorrow night. So I'm hoping to watch the second set. I think we're going to start at the second set first, so we can get into the craziness. Which part of me is super upset because I'm OCD. Like when there's a show, you start at the start. And then you go to the end. So what ended up happening was we fall asleep, right? Like, we're good for the first set. Rochelle will fall asleep.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd rather watch with her the second set. We're like, second set of Phish, man. Like, let's be serious here.
Yeah, we're both early risers. I mean, we're both up like, you're up what, 4:30 most days?
4:30, yep.
Jeez, yeah, I'm like 5.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that's not that big of a difference, but in my brain it feels
big.
Man.
It starts with a 4. It's not okay.
Yeah, that's early. So, most nights, 9:30, 10 o'clock, I start to nod off, unfortunately. Although, if I'm off the following day, I'll push myself and I'll stay up. Like, I was up late last night. It was good. Cool. Yeah, so I'm going to have this up in the next few minutes. We'll get it up live, and then, people can listen even before tonight's dinner and a movie. It'll be good.
Cool. That's it. We're done?
That's everything I had on the menu. Anything you wanted to talk about?
No, no, not right now. I like what you come up with. I think the content's good. I'm going to keep all this, by the way. I just let it play after.
Yeah. Okay. Cool beans. All right, man. Well, have a good day. I will chat with you soon, and I'll let you know about the weekend.
Okay. Sounds good, buddy.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye.